Welcome to my Adobe Express double exposure effect tutorial. So here's kind of the end result, but there's a couple things we got to start with here, right? So first there's this image of a shape or a mask-like layer, which is in the screen blend mode, and it's a grayscale or black and white image. So that's kind of the most basic. This black and white image determines the shape of your double exposure effect. And then with some erasing, right? So this top layer, I went and did erase with a circle brush with a soft edge, and I was able to make the outer edge of the head transparent. So you kind of work with two things in these double exposure effects: the shape, the black and white layer, and then the photo layer that you do erasing on. So if I were to switch to the next slide, so then you can make that mask-like layer with black and white. You can really complicate that layer and get a more intricate kind of design, right? So I started with the Lobo silhouette. I added white trees at the bottom. I added a smoke or powder kind of effect, and then I added grapes coming out of the powder effect. All right, so you can edit the mask-like layer and then add a photo layer on top. And then what you can do to take it a step further is you can download that black and white mask-like layer and then add a bunch of photos on top. So in my case, I started with that mask-like layer on the bottom, then I added the grapes harvest layer, then I added the Lobo Seawolf image with the background removed, and then I added a lens flare. So right, so you can go both ways. You can complicate both the mask-like layer, and then you can use erasing to kind of combine these photo layers, right? And then I downloaded this. It gets kind of complicated, right? There's a lot of colors going on, a lot of shapes, it's kind of hard. Where do I even start looking? So if you do a duotone adjustment, you can make the shadows one color, and then it's a little easier on your viewer, and it looks a little more, I don't know, simple and timeless, I guess. So the limitations are that you have to be on a white background for this to work. So if you do try to remove your background, it doesn't look great, right? You can remove the background and you can add text behind it, but that is a limitation of this Adobe Express effect. And the brush, the erasing brush, is a little tricky. So you might want to download the mask-like grayscale layer and open it in Photoshop. And then you can paint with a white brush with a soft edge, and you can make your edges a little more intricate, right? Like if you want the grapes to kind of gradually fade away, you can add some white to them in Photoshop with a white brush with a white foreground color. Likewise, you can add a layer mask. You hit remove background and it adds a layer mask, and then you can paint the layer mask with a black brush with a soft edge, and you can kind of do more subtle erasing than you can in Adobe Express. So let's do it, right? Purple plus button. We are going to recreate everything in here, and purple plus button, new Adobe Express document, 16 by 9. And I already downloaded my Lobo Seawolf image onto my desktop. So I'm going to bring it in and center it, and then option drag a corner to make sure the kind of the head is the focus of this image. Option drag it again and kind of center it. All right. So we don't want the background. Let's remove it. And we want to duplicate it. So ... duplicate. If ... doesn't work, you can hit reload, and then you should get a duplicate to work. And I'm going to marquee drag to select both, and then I'm going to position top left to get them perfectly aligned. And then I'm going to go grab a palm tree black and white layer to put in between them. So plus button, media, photos, and then search for palm tree black and white. Okay, so I have one image I'm working with here. It's just that one image or photo, and I'm going to have one black and white layer. So this is like as easy as it gets. Okay, if I scroll, you can use any, but I found one that was kind of from the center out, which I'm not seeing right now. Palm tree, black and white. Come on, black and white palm tree. There it is. So I like this one, and I just had to option drag to make it bigger and kind of reposition in the middle. And then I'm going to drag it to the middle, and I'm going to change the blend mode opacity to screen so that the black pixels drop out. They get replaced. They get replaced by the white. And then I'm going to erase that top layer around the outer edge so the palm tree becomes visible. All right, I'm going to hit the erase and then not quick select, but circle brush, 0 hardness, biggest size possible, and then come around the edge here. All right, and start erasing so that the palm tree becomes visible. All right, so you could try, if you want to go a little faster, you could use the increase the hardness there, but something like this. And then if you want to go back and hit done and go back to the palm tree, select the palm tree, and you might need to lock down the one of the other layers, right, if it's getting in the way. So when it gets kind of tricky here in Adobe Express to select layers, yeah, I don't want to do that. So I'm going to have to lock down this top layer and then try to select, see, it keeps going, there it is, maybe. So this option drag, no, again, wrong one. So I got to lock down the other layer, and hopefully now we can get a palm tree without, if I marquee drag, and all right, so sometimes you might need to like zoom in and zoom out. There's my palm tree. I saw it, that blue layer on the outline. There it is. All right, I was too far zoomed in. So right, so now I can kind of reposition and move the palm tree as needed. And what's kind of cool is you can animate it if you want to animate like a little, I don't know, in and out kind of effect. Little wiggle, I don't know. It does, you can animate the palm tree for a little more visual interest, but I digress. Let's get out of the palm tree and remove all animation. Okay, so we got one. I'm gonna come back here because I do need to use these layers and unlock them. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my Lobo and hit Command C to copy and add a page, same size, and then Command V. All right, and so now I'm going to make this fancy kind of shape layer or mask-like layer. All right, so let's do this duotone effect where we go Effect, Duotone, and then make both the shadows and the highlights black. All right, so now we got this, basically instead of the palm tree in the last example, this now becomes the black palm tree that does our mask-like effect. You can try adding grayscale. I try to stick to black and white, but okay, so let's get those trees at the bottom. Okay, I did a search for redwoods, black and white, and found this tree, and I need to invert it. So I need to do the duotone effect and switch the shadows to white and the highlights to black. And then I get some kind of nice looking trees here that I like. And I'm only going to use, I guess I need to remove the background as well. And then move it down, scale it down, and option drag to duplicate it across the bottom. So, all right, those are some nice looking trees. And then option drag. Okay, plenty of trees. And the problem here is that we start to get a bunch of layers. So I'm going to add the smoke effect next. So I did media, smoke effect, black and white, smoke effect, black and white. it was kind of, there it is, this powdery one. So I grabbed this and I had to do the same trick because I want the smoke to be black. So I had to do the effect, duotone, and invert it where the shadows become white and the highlights become black. And I really want this to be more saturated or darker black. I don't like to work. You could try working with the grayscale if you want. It adds, a little more subtlety to it. But I am going to do edit, adjust, really increase the contrast, take down the brightness, take down the highlights, take up the highlights, and maybe even some saturation too. All right, so now it's really more black, or it's less gray, I guess is what I should say. And then I am going to remove the background and kind of put it over on the side of the image. And then I'm going to have some grapes coming out of this smoke. So, okay, so I'm going to drop it down behind everything and put it off over here. You can perfect it if you want to make it look a little, I don't know. All right, so now let's get the grapes coming out. So add content, photos, and grapes. And this one's fine. I'm gonna do the same trick, effect, duotone, and make everything, the shadows, dark and the highlights dark. I'm going to remove the background first and then do that so I can see what I'm doing. Edit, remove background. And effects, duotone, and highlights, black, shadows, black. And now I can move the grapes off to the side and scale them way down. All right, so now it's kind of like coming out over here and rotate. And so you can, I don't know, for demo purposes, I'm gonna leave it like this, just maybe 1 or 2 transformations. But you can do a bunch, whatever you want. And all right, so now we got our shape. So if you want, you can add a photo on top, like a vineyard or anything. I added this one, made it big, option dragged, and then changed the blend mode to screen so that the white wins and the black drops out. And so that's cool, I think, but if you want to do one more level of complexity where you kind of bring in some of the original mascot or a lens flare or something else, let's do it. So I'm going to take the opacity back down, and I'm going to download this mask-like layer, which will kind of fuse, merge visible, and fuse all of those individual layers of grapes and trees together. And I'm going to put that on a new page, same size, bring it in, center it, smart guides. And now I can start adding some more interesting layers on top. I can go back and get that, the grapes, and change the blend mode to opacity screen. And I can add a lens flare. So media, photo, lens flare on black. And the black background will let me change the screen blend mode. So bring that in and change the opacity to screen so the black pixels drop out. If you don't like that orangey look, you can do effect and grayscale, but then it kind of loses some of its intensity, so you might want to go to edit and adjust the contrast to bring back more some of that detail to the lens flare, more the brightness. All right, so that's kind of cool. Or just leave the original. And then let's grab Lobo. So you might need to go back if you don't have the original layer, right? I guess what I'm saying is I got to go back and I got to copy this original layer. That's where Lobo's perfectly positioned. So Command C, edit copy, come over, Command V, and then I'm going to eliminate that duotone effect. So effect, duotone, and none. All right. And so now I'm going to move Lobo underneath the lens flare, and I'm going to get out my eraser. So edit, erase, and then with a soft edge, the hardness down low, 20 here for me, size as big as possible. I can come in here, right? And so now I can kind of make the vineyard kind of come into the image, just, I don't know, to add a little bit of, you add more, you're making Lobo transparent, and you're, now I have, if I hit done, I have the lens flare, the Lobo, and the grapes. So I have 3 photo layers, and then my black mask-like layer. And again, this gets a little messy, right? This is kind of complicated. So I'm going to download this. And in order to simplify it, I'm going to make a new page and bring it in, center it, and then apply a duotone adjustment. Effect, duotone. Leave the highlights, or make the highlights white, and then the shadows, one of these like, whoop, I guess leave the shadows white. No, what is the highlights should be white, yes, and the shadows should be, there we go. So so I think that's a little more timeless, a little more simple. Maybe you want to option drag to blow it up. But if you're having the brush, the erase brush is a little limiting. So if you do want to either open up some of your work, if you have Adobe Express, you probably have Photoshop online. So you can go to the adobe.com home and then open up your black and white image inside of Photoshop, or your Lobo image. And so if we go to adobe.com/home and then go to Photoshop and then drag in our mask layer, we can paint with a white brush. So swap the foreground and background color for me. Make sure hardness is down to 0. Open up the brush tool, and then right. So if like you want to make the kind of the grapes like fade out, you can. And then likewise, if you bring in, if you go again adobe.com/home and you bring in your Lobo image, got to go to Photoshop Online first. You can add a layer. You hit remove background, which adds a layer mask, and so now we have transparency, and we can paint with a black brush foreground with a low hardness on the layer mask, and then we can add some transparency this way. So if you're finding the brush, the erase brush in Adobe Express a little hard to work with or limiting, you can get better results with Photoshop Online. But that's a lot. So again, to summarize, right, you have 2 components. You can edit your grayscale mask-like layer, and you can then combine a bunch of images together, like the Lobo Seawolf image, the vineyard layer, and the lens flare layer, to start adding more complexity into your double exposure effect here in Adobe Express.